August is Women's Month, and we at the station are showcasing powerful and resilient women. These are people who have gone through incredible trauma or change in their life, and they have come back better and stronger. This is Beautiful Makeup. Today on Beautiful Makeup, we chat to Letshego Zulu. Letshego lost her husband on Kilimanjaro in 2017. In 2018, she went back and she climbed it on her own. This is her story. So Letshego, this book, I Choose to Live, and underneath in smaller writing it says Life After Losing Gugu.
Yeah.
Was that deliberate? Because it is one sentence the way you've written it, I choose to live life after losing Gugu, but the first 4 words are in bold on the cover. Was that a deliberate?
It's deliberate because that second line is directed at me.
Okay.
And, you know, when anyone reads this book and they get that aha moment that, you know what, I choose to live, I want them to own it. They can add their own second line. That line is specific to me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know when I lost a lot of weight very quickly, and my choose to live was to do things. Because I'd never done things. I'd lived in this transit lounge of fat, watching other people do the things. And when I was thin, I would do the things. And then I was thin, and I thought, well, now you have to do the things.
Exactly.
So I know
Own it.
that resonated with me so much. It really did. I think a lot of people who we're chatting to would know exactly who Gugu and Letshego are. It was the adventure couple.
Yeah.
And you were in magazines and newspapers. I don't think there was an adventure or a getaway magazine that didn't have you somewhere in it. And you were this team. And then Leletu came along and she was Adventure Baby.
Exactly.
I mean, I think
she
at the
fitted
time,
right in.
she did.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever did it, but I remember interviewing Gugu and he said, we're going to get an Instagram account so you can see the adventures from Adventure Baby's perspective.
And she does have an Instagram account.
And then 3 months later, you went to Kilimanjaro together.
Yeah.
But one of you came back down alive.
Yeah.
So talk me through that last trek. You'd cycled together, you'd run together, I think you'd even swum together.
Yeah.
And now you were mountain climbing together.
Yeah. Sure. So Kilimanjaro was on our bucket list for a long time. I mean, we had a long adventure bucket list. And it was in 2015, the year before, when we decided that, you know what, 2016, it's Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
We've cycled all we have, we've run so much, let's do something different. And yeah, little did I know that that would be our last adventure together.
When on the trip did you realize the two of you were not moving in tandem, that he was falling behind, that he wasn't feeling great?
You know what, when we left home, I knew that he wasn't 100%, he wasn't himself, you know. The flight down to Kili, he was quiet, you know, he would take a nap here and there. And, you know, that should have been the big light bulb moment. But, you know, he didn't complain of pain. You know, we only really get alarmed when someone says, I'm in pain.
But also, he wasn't a risk taker with his health either. He would never have done that. So he must also have thought, well, I'm just a bit tired.
Yeah.
Just feeling a bit, ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
And he'd been given the all clear by the doctor.
He was.
Yeah.
I mean, he did get the all clear by the doctor. And, you know, me being the cautious one, I also, you know, throughout the trek, I made sure that I'd walk in front of him or keep him behind me so that he doesn't overexert himself. Because I do understand that when you're not 100%, you actually shouldn't be exercising. But I think we took it for granted that this is just a walk.
So now, at what point during the climb did you realize he had to go back down urgently? What happened there?
So when we got to Kibo Hut, which is 4 days into the trek, literally, you know, the night, that particular night, we were supposed to prepare ourselves for the summit trek, because you start trekking in the middle of the night to the summit. And you know, from late afternoon when we got to Kibo, he was absolutely exhausted. He was out of it, and you know, he informed the doctor, who then thought, okay, well, you know, if you that exhausted, let's give you a drip, and hopefully you'll get energized. You know, it must have been one of those vitamin B type of drips, and you know, he had an adverse reaction. and it didn't do what it was meant to do. Instead of him being energized, you know, it turned for the worst, and he fell into this very deep sleep, and yeah.
So what did you do next?
We, you know, it was at about 9 p.m. when I found him foaming at the mouth. You know, everyone was fast asleep, and I obviously couldn't sleep, so I, you know, I had stepped out of the room to have a chat with a fellow climber, and when I came back into the room, found him foaming, screamed, and woke up the entire camp, and that was essentially the start of the emergency descent, that is, because yes, you know, the doctor came back and we managed to stabilize him and put him on a stretcher and head down the mountain. So that was essentially, you know, I can't say that was the start of the nightmare. I think that the nightmare started very gradually and we weren't realizing it, but that was the start of, you know, the nightmare magnified. And, you know, then began the 8-hour trek down Kilimanjaro.
What was going through you, not just your mind, but your soul, your heart, as you were doing that run? Because you were right next to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the thought process, the heart process?
You know, I'm an optimist. I've always been an optimist, and, you know, I think the best of everyone, I think the best of life. And I clutched onto hope all the way down. All that entire 8 hours, I literally clutched onto hope. And I, you know, I had these mind games as well, because certain things would creep into my mental space that weren't so kosher, and I'd have these mind games to try and kick those thoughts out of my mind.
Things like what?
Things like, I remember when, I think it must have been a good 6 hours or so into the descent, when, you know, I went to check if his hands were warm. I mean, I realized that I had hand warmers in my pockets, and I unzipped him and just to go check his hands, and they were freezing cold. And I also realized that his ring finger was bent. You know, I sat there thinking, okay, this is one of two things. It's either he's bent the finger to protect the ring so that it doesn't fall, because he was being transported on a bicycle stretcher.
I mean, that on its own.
And every time the porters needed to catch their breath and rest, it rests like this.
Okay, so the ring would slip
and
off his hand.
and the ring could slip off. So I figured, okay, well, he's probably bending it just to save his ring. But then when I went and tried to straighten the ring finger, it remained bent. And at that particular moment, I thought to myself, could this be rigor mortis?
Wow.
But I immediately, as quickly as that thought came into my mind, I literally kicked it out. So you can see the mind games that, you know.
And most of this was in the dark as well.
Yeah.
And the dark is just I always say everything's worse in the dark.
Yeah.
When you can see the sunlight, there's kind of hope and you get a bit of peace and equilibrium, but when it gets dark, all the demons come.
Absolutely.
When you got to proper medical care, what happened then?
When I got kicked out of the emergency room, I completely understood, you know, and I sat outside for quite some time, and I sat with Richard, who's the founder of Mbumba Foundation. Yes, so, I mean, the trek was essentially for his foundation. And Richard sat silently with me outside the hospital room or outside the emergency room. And then he was called in, and I thought, gee, okay. I still wasn't piecing anything together. I was still clutching on to hope, you know.
But I think anyone listening to this or looking at this would be exactly where you were, because it's just so unreal.
Yeah.
Like 12 hours ago, he was tired but fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And now he's in an emergency room and no one will tell you what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. So Richard gets called in, and he's in there for quite some time. I mean, it felt like forever. It does when you're in an emergency, I guess. So, I mean, it could have been all of 1 minute, but it felt like
the longest
forever.
minute in the world.
It was. And, you know, Richard came out, and he took me away from the door and told me a story about Googs needing to be transferred to another hospital. And Yeah, shortly thereafter I was called back in and the news was broken to me.
It's unreal.
It is unreal.
I haven't lost a husband, but my mom and I were best friends.
Yeah.
And it's unreal. It's like, but they were here.
Yeah.
And now they're not.
Yeah.
And as much as we are all separate people living our own lives as individuals, when you've been a unit for as long as you have, as long as you had, you feel like you're going home with half a body.
Yeah, but even when the doctors broke it to me, I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, that's not possible. No. And I remember barging out of the room because I was like, I need to go see this for myself. It can't be. Yeah.
And when I see him, he's gonna wake up.
Exactly.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. But yeah, then you come back home and reality strikes, and it took a while for reality to strike, I think.
I think when somebody that you really love dies, it's almost the drama of the situation that stops you feeling the emotion that comes later. Exactly. Because you're constantly planning. I mean, I know you had a very close family relationship. I mean, you had a lot of support. That was wonderful. I mean, the fact that the family is so close.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. But it's small comfort at the time. But people were helping you and looking after you. And it's just the kind of, as you're making arrangements, it's like this big dream. And at the end of it, Google will come through the door and he'll laugh about all of this.
Exactly.
And then
because he was also away from home quite a lot, you know, whether it was for racing or cycling with the boys. Yeah, so it, you know, having him not pitch up at home for a week or two kind of wasn't weird. It wasn't weird at all. And then it's like 3 years down the line and he still hasn't come home.
When you say you choose to live, was there a point where that was ever in doubt?
The first 2-3 months, that was definitely in doubt, you know. I think when reality struck back in Kilimanjaro, when I was told, there were emotions, but I think I probably felt the heaviness of the emotions when I came back home and realized how many other people were mourning his death. I think it became very heavy. It became heavy for me, and you know, I had times when I'd wake up and not see the point of waking up. I just want to stay in bed. One night, probably at about 11 p.m., I'm lying in bed at his parents' house, and by then I had been introduced to a lady called Chelsea Dinsmore.
I read about her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chelsea lost her husband, Scott, on Kilimanjaro 9 months before Gugu. Also lost his life. And, you know, Chelsea's loss, I say, was... So mine was horrendous, hers was double horrendous because she lost Scott to a rockfall. I at least got to walk Googs or run Googs down the mountain. She lost him up there. And... you know, someone connected Chelsea and I, and we had started exchanging notes, and we were WhatsApp buddies and, you know, sharing our grief stories. And one night I said, that particular night, I said, well, let me go check if she's on social media. And I started off with Instagram. And goodness me, I was never ready for what I bumped into. You know, as I opened her page, I just saw life.
Tell me.
I remember the first picture that I landed on. Chelsea was in a bikini. She was looking out at the ocean. And I can't remember if it was a handstand or a star jump or something. Yeah. But there was just so much life in that picture. And I remember scrolling on her page and thinking, she lost her husband 9 months ago. Or 9 months before Googs lost his life. Because this was a good 2-3 months after Gugu passed away. And the two of them had been together for more or less the same years, yes, number of years as Googs and I had been together. And I thought to myself, but we're on the same path. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not a train.
Her life didn't come to an end. So mine doesn't need to come to an end.
How did you make that happen? Because I always say, when you talk about something, and you make it an action. So instead of, for example, when I'm looking at a swim going, well, I can't do that, is to go, what needs to change in my life so I can? It's just that shifting. So what is it for you that you managed to put into place that became your reality?
I stopped feeling guilty for laughing, the simple things in life. I started feeling okay with smiling. I started feeling okay with going out for a run. And doing things that I love. Because Googs often used to say to me, don't be too scared to put yourself first. Because you come first in your life.
Just talk to him.
I come second, third, fourth. You come first in your life. You came into this earth alone, and you're going to depart on your own. So don't be afraid to put yourself first. Don't be afraid to be selfish with yourself.
The thing that I loved the most about the book was the end, and I'm going to qualify that. First, I was glad it was finished because I had sobbed so much, but mostly that last bit at the end where you got the letters for Leletu. So tell me where that idea came from. I thought that's amazing. I wish I'd done that with my mum.
So I went back to Kilimanjaro in 2017. Same time, same place, same cause, exactly 365 days later. But leading up to that trip, I'll tell you that I was very nervous.
No, really? Why though?
I knew that I wanted to do it, right? And I was going to do it because I'm one of those people that when I start something, I need to finish it. I start writing a book, I have to finish it. I start anything at all, any project. Yeah, so Kilimanjaro was incomplete for me in 2016 and I had to go back, right? And with that being said, obviously I announced this and, you know, the media and everybody out there knew that I was going back, and I got a lot of, not hate mail per se, but I had a lot of people saying to me, you can't go back, that's irresponsible, what if you also lose your life, your poor child, this, that, the naysayers. And I won't lie to you and say that didn't get to me.
Of course.
Because it did.
You wouldn't be here.
But I was still hell-bent on, I need to go back. And I sat there thinking, shoo, but what if I don't? You know? It's not a good thing to do what ifs, because I'm not a what ifs person. But I thought, okay, let me gift my child with something. Let me reach out to friends on social media. And besides having started writing the book as well, and you know, I was almost complete by then, I said, let me reach out to friends on social media and get them to tell Leletu about the experiences that they had with her dad. Just so she can have a broader picture of who her dad was. Because I can only tell a one-sided story, right? My love story with him. But I want her to fully understand. Yeah.
And make everyone part of her.
Yeah. So I held on to them for quite some time.
Climbing Kilimanjaro again the following year, when you got to Kibo Hut.
Sure. I got to Kibo Hut. I requested to stay in the same room. I didn't have any energy to talk to anyone at that time. I remember just keeping to myself. Besides the fact that Kibo Hut is just it's a horrendous place. It looks like a scene out of a horror movie. It's ugly. It's also called Headache Camp because you're high up in terms of altitude, and people are either throwing up or you've got this constant headache that just doesn't want to go away. You don't have much oxygen, so you can't even laugh and chat to each other in any case. So you try and preserve your energy. So it was only normal for me to just keep to myself. And interestingly enough, I didn't have a heavy feeling. You know, I could feel his presence with me there. I could actually feel his presence right through the entire trek back in 2017. And you know, the nice thing about the group that we trekked with in 2017 is it was a much smaller group, because back in 2016 we were 42 and in 2017 we were about 24, 25, so a much smaller group. And they kind of allowed me to lead the way in conversation or in silence.
That's beautiful.
So whenever they realized that I was quiet and keeping to myself, they let me be. Stayed in the same room. I chose his bed. And yeah, it was, I don't even think I have a way of describing how I felt. I felt him there, I felt his presence, almost cradling me. I thought I would get there and fall apart, but I didn't.
And the next day,
Oof.
or whenever, when you
Reached
went on
the
that,
summit.
yeah. Now, that day, the year before, you'd been running down a mountain,
Yeah.
and now you were summiting. How was that?
Sure. I mean, I remember getting to Uhuru and realizing, oh my gosh, I actually fulfilled the promise that I made to him. I made it. I lived.
You did. You do.
I want to build a life for me, for her. I want to, yeah, just make this, the rest of our life together, incredible.
Last question. As I say, there are going to be people listening to this who have
Yeah.
also got to a point in their life where either their situation was chosen for them by circumstance, or they've placed themselves there for whatever reason, and they're looking around going, well, it's easy for her to say. She's always been a go-getter, she's always been logical, she's always been calm, she's always had a plan, but it's not my life. What can you say to that woman sitting there, or that man sitting there listening to you going, "Oh, but I can't do that"?
It's a mental state. It's a choice that you make. We've all been gifted this thing called life. And whatever it is that you're going through, whatever challenge it is, it's up to you to decide whether you're going to allow it to freeze you or free you.
I love that. I've always said with fear you can let it eat you or you can let it feed you, but I like that more.
Yeah.
Can I use it if I credit you?
Yes, please.
I will.
Just make sure you credit me.
Rest
Yeah.
of the year?
Rest of the year, I've got a new business that I'm working on. I'll talk about it in a couple of months' time.
Okay. You don't have to come back then.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, good.
Of course, I'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course, just sharing my lessons, the life lessons that I share in the book. I've got quite a number of corporate talks that are already in the
I've stayed away from some
pipeline.
of the big stuff in the book because I want people to go out and buy it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
the
just a
life
sliver.
lessons.
Yes.
The life lessons. You know, I've said to people, just in summary, when it comes to my book, that this book is for anyone and everyone. Actually, there's no particular, you can't say it's for people that have lost a loved one. It's for anyone and everyone, purely because in life we are all hit with various challenges. And the life lessons that I share in there are not rocket science, but we as human beings tend to forget. And it's literally about showing you that, or reminding you, that when life knocks you down, it's up to you how you get up, dust yourself off, and try again.
I love it. Thank you very much for coming and chatting to us.
Thank you.
Hot 91.9.
Playing the best old school and R&B.